Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hardware Podcast. My name is Jackson Danner, along with my good friend Omar Borja, and our special guest today, Mike, otherwise known as CFB Campus Tour on Twitter. Man, he is going all over the country, touring all sorts of college stadiums and venues, and we're going to give him a little interview today. So glad to have you on, Mike.
Jackson, thank you for having me. Omar, thank you for the invite. I mean, we got the first game in 2 days, so this is a great time to start talking about this stuff. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really heating up. It actually we've got actual college football being played, which is always when you start to feel it for real. So
It's true. And it's funny, there was that spring season for FCS, and normally we don't have that in the spring. So normally it's a 7-8 month wait, but for some reason, these last couple of months have been excruciatingly long. So no more talking about it. It's time to go and catch games. So it's a great time to be a college football fan.
Certainly, I totally agree. And I'm sure what a lot of people wonder, Mike, when they see your profile is like, how do you do it and what it's like? So I guess we'll ask just that, like, what's it like touring all these stadiums and really, like, how do you do it, honestly?
So, it just kind of started off, we all watch games and then we imagine ourselves at the stadium and then we think it would be cool to be there. And then you think, man, I want to go. And so I work in real estate in California. It's a good time for that. Obviously, I'm self-employed, so I can make my own schedule. And really what I do from January until August is work as much as possible, stack money, book flights early, take the cheap flights Southwest. I have a Southwest Airlines credit card that I get airline points with. I pay my rent with it. I pay all my bills and then pay it off at the end of the month. You try to, reserve cars early, get tickets early, make friends, do everything you can to make the cost as low as possible. And then from September through the end of the year, I work just enough to make sure that I, got the bills paid and everything. And I pretty much put college football at the forefront of my life. And, of course, I'm extremely fortunate to be able to do it. Not that many people could do it, but I really am cognizant of, how fortunate I am. And then I just try to give back as much as I can, have people come along with me, experience it, go to games, tailgate, all that. But really, it's so much planning. And, with COVID and everything, you've thrown in that monkey wrench into everything. But really, this is my 5th season doing it. And I got it down better than I ever had. But it's a sacrifice, but it's a great sacrifice to have.
yeah, that's awesome. I know you've been to man, you're creeping up on all the FBS venues. If you haven't already been to them all, it's just out of curiosity, what's the loudest one you've been to, you think?
I would say Texas A&M. I went there in 2018 when they played Clemson. I think it was like 28-26. They were a 2-point conversion away from tying the game. That 12th man is a real thing. They have cadets at the 2nd and the 3rd level on one sideline. They got guys on the field doing arm signals, directing, coordinating cheers. That was intense. I went to the Egg Bowl in 2019. That was a notorious game where Elijah Moore did the little dog celebration in the end zone, pushed the extra point back 15 yards, and then they didn't make it. Those cowbells are, we think of Christopher Walken when we say cowbell, but those cowbells are so intense, and they do it up till 15 seconds in the play clock. But, from the time the play clock is set to that 15 seconds, it's hard to even think. So off the top of my head, and then I did the whiteout Penn State 2018. They were beating Ohio State 27-14 going in the 4th quarter, loudest place I can imagine. And Dwayne Haskins led 2 4th quarter drives and they won 28-27. KJ Hill scored, and I got this video of him going in the end zone, shushing the crowd. He didn't have to shush them. They were already quiet. So those are 3 that jump out at me.
I'm sure Jackson was looking for the Swamp for one of those venues, but I'll ask it for him. Like, how'd you feel about the Swamp down in Florida?
Yeah, it was, so last year I went to the Swamp and they played South Carolina, and it was COVID times, so all this stuff you have to take with a grain of salt. So, the stadium is huge. It's incredible. The press box is prodigious, right? It's gigantic. I tried to go on, the cool thing about the bright side about COVID is you got to go around the stadium a little more freely. When I went to the whiteout at Penn State, I literally had to sit sideways in my seat. There wasn't really much chance of being able to go to the bathroom. I mean, the place is cramped. So when you go to a big place like the Swamp with reduced capacity, you can take in the elements a little bit more. I definitely want to go back. But the problem with the schedule was last year was I was trying to save certain games for after COVID. But when you get far along in, you only have so many stadiums left, you'll look at a Saturday and maybe there's one or two that are new stadiums. And the SEC was one of the only places that allowed fans last year. So I wanted to save Florida. I wanted to save the Iron Bowl this year for my last stadium. I just couldn't do it. I had to go to Auburn. So I thought the Swamp was an incredible stadium. I just got about a 10th of the experience. So I'm looking forward to going back.
Man, something that you see sometimes with college teams, they end up playing in NFL stadiums. It's not nearly as full as some of the others, as opposed to if they had a smaller venue. Do you think having a nice venue like an NFL stadium that you can play in as a benefit, or do you think it'd be better? These schools would be better off if they had maybe a smaller venue that maybe was more their own?
I mean, I personally hate it. I hate it. Anybody that's I joke, you call a stadium connoisseur, you're looking for the best experience possible. I've been to Rice Stadium and I filmed a video and there's literally nobody in the upper deck. You go to, Temple is one that I haven't been to yet. And I haven't had any desire to go because they play in the Link and that's the Eagles and they don't sell that thing. Heinz Field, same thing. So, I'm sure, and UNLV just moved to Allegiant Stadium, which is the greatest state-of-the-art stadium there is. Maybe it's maybe the Rams with SoFi, but I like Sam Boyd. So it's kind of a clash between the finances and what might work. Maybe they get a larger percentage of the concessions in the stadium versus what somebody thinks about, like romanticizes college football with. And so with progress comes the need for larger stadiums. I live, the closest baseball stadium to where I live is the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. And I did a baseball camp there when I was a kid. And you could have a view of the bay. And then when the Raiders came back, they built what we call Mountain Davis, which is the giant part, and it blocked out the whole bay. And that was a stipulation to get the Raiders back. And then 2 years, kind of the novelty wore off. They couldn't sell it out. Now it's tarped. And now the Raiders left because they don't like the stadium anymore, but they asked for it, right? So anyways, to answer your question, if San Diego State is building a G5 school right now with 35,000 seats. UAB is building Protective Stadium, 47,000. Those are reasonable numbers. And, USF always gets made fun of for being in the Buccaneers Stadium. So I personally like on-campus college football stadiums. It may work out financially better for some of these universities to share the costs in a big pro team stadium, but that's not my thing. What do you guys think?
I'm sort of the opposite, I guess. Like, I do enjoy neutral site games because I enjoy bowl games. I think they're great for the American economy in most cases, and it has like sort of that big game feel. But I do understand where there's sort of that, I guess, hallowed feel with like a lot of venues that I guess should be revered and moving these games to. In terms of like these newer schools, I guess like the newer case studies that exist, like Tulane with Yulman Stadium, like those do benefit the atmosphere of the schools and like the energy of the program. It seems like the whole vibe of Tulane was like a city program that had no interest behind it and was just playing little brother to the Saints. Now they have their own place and they're building some sort of momentum. So I'm kind of in the middle with this, really.
Mike, I'm in agreement with you as far as that, because I don't know how USF playing in Ray J. I don't know how you call it your stadium when it's just a sea of red seats
right
around you and a banner, on the other
Pirate
side.
ship.
Right, the pirate ship and the Go Bucks sign on the other side of the video board. It's just I'm with you on that one because it doesn't feel as special. I can understand the financial reasons for the schools, but man, that that's a tough sell to call it your stadium and to have an intimidating environment. And knowing for some of these smaller schools, you're probably never going to have a sellout game if you're in such a large capacity stadium, stuff like that. I do love neutral site games. I didn't go to the game, but I went to College Game Day when it was Oregon Auburn over there at AT&T at College Game Day in Fort Worth, and I love neutral site games like that. But I mean, I'm with you. I can't get behind the college and NFL stadiums.
Well, it's good that we all have different angles on this, So, I mean, I'm not trying to relegate people to not make money, but at the same time, when you have recruits come in and you're showing off a stadium, and even if you got 42,000 and it's only 60% full because your stadium holds 80, it might not reflect as good on how they view the visit. So, but yeah, it sounds like there's varying opinions on this.
For sure. And I guess to react to what Jackson's saying about USF and what you're saying too, Mike, you're telling me you don't love how back in the day they would paint over the Buccaneers flag and put the U for South Florida. You don't like that? I'm kidding, of course.
It's like Staples Center when they go between the Clippers and the Lakers, right? You got the red and blue and then you switch to yellow. Yeah, I mean, everybody likes it for their own if they can. I'm in the weeds a little bit with the USF Twitter. And anytime anybody from USF says anything, they're like, get your own stadium. Like, that's literally the first thing that comes out. So, I
mean, and on the field too, until things get better. I mean, it's going to be tough to be a USF fan.
Yeah. War on I-4 might not be appropriate right now. They got to come up with, something else. So anyways, not trying to piss off USF fans here. So.
Yeah, certainly not something that we intend to do, even though we do our fair share of pissing off a fan bases, to be honest, sometimes. But we're gonna try not to do that now. We're gonna, I guess, segue to one of our main topics. So this weekend and next, well, actually the next week, Alabama's two historic stadiums, depending on where you're coming from, or two historic municipal stadiums, I should say. And for those who don't know those that aren't of the history type, municipal stadiums are stadiums built by the city to attract college games, like big college games for their local economies. Stadiums like Ladd-Peebles out in Mobile, Alabama, Legion Field and the Cramton Bowl are the two stadiums we're going to talk about here. So, Mike, I want to ask, out of those two stadiums, I'm assuming you've been to both. What's it like at both of those stadiums?
So I've been to both. Last year, I went to that FCS kickoff opener. It was Central Arkansas and Austin Peay. And that game was kind of a science experiment because it was the first COVID game. And I think it holds like 25,000 people, and it was 10% capacity. And I think there was really about 1,800 people there. On Twitter, I was really documenting the stadium. It was the first time I had seen every other stall blocked off. It was the first time I'd seen every other row blocked off. So, again, 2020 is going to come with the asterisk, but with the negative, with as far as not having the crowd at capacity, comes the positive of being able to freely flow through the stadium. One thing about the Cramton Bowl that I noticed, it was you couldn't get from one side to the other. And so you had to pick, are you on the home side or are you on the road side? That's more of a, when we're talking about old time stadiums, that's more of a thing from old time stadiums. From a traveler's perspective, I like to go on every side. So I actually bought tickets on both sides, and, I was like, okay, they wouldn't let me travel. So I had to go out and go on the other side and do that. But the Cramton Bowl, built in 1922, originally as a baseball stadium. And it started out under 9,000. Now it's at 25,000. But what I like about it, it's right on the street. It gives this cool vibe. You can literally drive by and look inside and see what's going on. Very intimate setting. Even the home side is only slightly bigger than the roadside as far as bleachers. They've upgraded with modern video boards on one of the end zones. And then on the end zone opposite of the scoreboard, there's an area where you can kind of stand and congregate and look down at the field. So it really is, they did have modern upgrades, but it really does bring you back to that old feel. So I enjoyed it there. There's a kickoff game this year. It's Jacksonville State and UAB. I'm not going to be able to go there, but I'm definitely going to check it out. And then as far as Legion Field is like one of my babies, right? I love that place. And, I grew up in California, and we had Dodger Stadium, we had Oakland Coliseum, we had Candlestick Park. These were all really old stadiums, not even as old as Legion Field, but you just get that feel. And so, Legion Field, 1926, it started out as 25,000 or so, and at its peak, it went up to 83,000 seats and hosted all the huge Iron Bowls and Alabama games and the 96 Olympics and, Magic City Classic. I went there last year for the Magic City Classic. And so, they've had Birmingham Iron, all different types of pro games and Birmingham Bowl. So when I go into Legion Field, I just get like a special feeling there. It's a personal thing, I guess. There's a vibe that we get at stadiums, but it's huge. It's a different dynamic. And again, I went to the Magic City Classic in 2020 when it was reduced capacity, but at times they've had 60, 70,000 people there. So it's a cool venue. And, if I had to say, I got a picture of that I took right back there of Legion Field. If I had to choose, I would pick Legion Field.
And Jackson, I mean, do you have any thoughts on either stadium? I know being a Florida fan in your family, and I guess your parents or grandparents, I know they had strong feelings toward Legion. I was wondering if those feelings carried as well to you.
Yeah. I was taught to hate Legion Field growing up because the SEC championship would always be there. It was not a neutral site when it was Alabama and Florida playing there every year. The whole crowd was crimson. So I was raised to hate Legion Field. As far as which one has a more significant historical impact, another one that I didn't know until researching for this podcast today, that Legion Field is the home of Joe Namath's last game in Alabama.
Wow.
As a New York Jet in 1968 for a Patriot or a Jets at Patriots, technically, regular season game. It was Joe Namath's last time playing in Alabama as a first time as a New York Jet and last time in his career. So I think that's pretty cool that he got to go back and play there. And that's something that I never knew until today. And that's a pretty cool historical aspect from football.
That is cool.
I can push back on both your guys' claims, I guess. I mean, really good points about Legion Field, Mike, and Jackson too. I too did not know that Joe Namath's final game I guess it was in Alabama too. That's really surprising. I mean, have to do more research into that. But I think the Cramton Bowl, just to start off, like very, very versatile venue. I'm wearing a hat of a team that moved to the Cramton Bowl for baseball, the Chattanooga Lookouts in 1946. They did end up moving there for the end of the year. And there's been a series of minor league baseball teams that have moved there. Something that Legion Field doesn't have, that multi-purpose sort of Cleveland Stadium type vibe. And then as well, too, there are a few places that are as magical on Christmas Day as the Cramton Bowl. And I'll tell you why. Because of the Blue-Gray Classic over the years, something that you probably know a lot about, Mike. Just growing up and watching, something that Jackson and I just missed up growing up watching. But just a list of names of the people that played in this game: Len Barney, Jerry Rice, Shannon Sharp, Jason Taylor. You have people like Terrell Davis, Curtis Martin, Isaac Bruce. I mean, the list goes on. Morton Anderson, of like people that didn't get to shine in bowl games, but had the Blue-Gray Classic on Christmas Day. And some of that Christmas magic was brought back this past season with the Marshall versus Buffalo game, the Camellia Bowl on Christmas Day. I mean, it was beautiful just to see a return of football on that day. And then as well, there seems to be that sort of magic every single year with the Camellia Bowl. There's never been a Camellia Bowl decided by more than one score, which really blows my mind, to be quite honest. So it must be that magic in the Crampton, referencing the popular song for our younger listeners and viewers. But also too, I will make a claim, a little bit of trivia. Can you guys name the only 7-time All-American in college football?
In one sport?
In one sport, in college football. This might blow your minds.
I didn't know that was possible. So yeah.
Well, eligibility rules weren't exactly what they are today back in the 1920s. So you have a Big Ben Stevenson of Tuskegee, who was a 7-time HBCU All-American. He played in 7 Turkey Day Classics at the Cramton Bowl, which, again, I think in terms of Alabama rivalries, I got to go with the Turkey Day Classic over the Magic City Classic, and much more the Iron Bowl in terms of best rivalries in the state. But Big Ben Stevenson, college football Hall of Famer, 7-time All-American, 72-9 as a collegian, 9.8 speed, and on one account had 42 touchdowns and more than 50 yards. So I
Wow.
mean, I gotta say, I think the Crampton Bowl takes it just for having Big Ben Stevenson play, possibly the greatest college football player. Like, we're talking about college alone. I mean, not combined college and pro, with Big Ben Stevenson playing, but both historic venues. And I do think the Legion. I think Legion Field is, I'd say, the Rose Bowl of, I wouldn't say mediocre, but spring football. Alternative football. We have the CFL playing there, the USFL. Pretty much any league that's appeared in the last 50 years has played at Legion Field, and I think it's kind of strange, to be honest.
Wow. Well, that record right there is kind of like Cy Young 511 wins in baseball, right? It's like on 72 wins in a college career is never going to be topped. So, but the Camellia or the Crampton Bowl is much more well positioned for the future as well. There's a lot of uncertainty now that UAB is getting their own stadium too. So I think there's a difference functionality wise to having a 1,000 seat stadium in forecasting for the future versus a 70,000 seat stadium with no tenant. So you could be right. UAB or Crampton Bowl could be standing longer than Legion Field. So
Yeah. I totally agree. That was actually going to be like my next question, I guess, regarding the future of both venues, or I guess venues like Legion Field. And I don't know, your thoughts on the Cotton Bowl, whether I guess that stadium's existence will be in question the next few years. But do you think there's a future for venues like that? I guess to expand more upon what you just said, if you have anything else to add.
yeah, I mean, there's another one. It's War Memorial Stadium in Arkansas. They play one home game every other year for an Arkansas game, just because Fayetteville is in the top northwest corner of Arkansas, and the War Memorial Stadium is in Little Rock, which is in the middle. I've been there. I walked around. I did a stadium tour. It is very dated. There are some improvements that are supposed to be going on, but very old concrete bleachers, kind of sketchy. But in general, they're dinosaurs. They're, unless you can get that historical designation, you could refurb them and improve them. I mean, I can't, it's in Savannah, Savannah banana slugs. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Savannah bananas. I forget the name. Is it Grayson? Anyways, it's a 110-year-old minor league baseball stadium. Babe Ruth played there. Jackie Robinson played there, and they got a historical designation. And now there's a new Savannah Bananas minor league baseball team. So I think that when you see Hancock Whitney in Mobile, when you see Protective Stadium in Birmingham, you see, San Diego State. I'm from San Diego. They knocked down Jack Murphy Qualcomm, and now they're building an Aztec Stadium that's 35,000 with the potential to be increased to 50,000 if, like, the Chargers came back, for example. So I think these old stadiums, unless you can do, what Oklahoma did, what Nebraska did, and expand them in a responsible way, either they got to get historical designations, they got to be multi-use, like you're talking about with the Crampton Bowl, or they need an anchor tenant. Otherwise, I mean, people want them out of there. And it's funny how the United States looks at historical landmarks versus other countries, right? They keep them forever. But I think the future is bleak unless they can find themselves in one or two of those categories.
So you mentioned the historical designations. Do you know anything about that process? Like, I guess how hard it is to obtain one. I guess with you mentioned the Savannah Banana Stadium. I think it's Grayson Stadium, like you
Yes.
mentioned. Do you know anything about like that process, like whether it was rigorous or not?
I don't know. I mean, I know that, like Wrigley Field has it, Fenway Park has it. So I don't know the process, but, I'm sure it's a combination of justifying safety, justifying future usefulness and revenue returned and maintenance costs. I mean, there's another one right now, Aloha Stadium in Hawaii. They purposely let it go, deferred maintenance, and now it's unplayable, it's condemned. They just had an on-campus little track in stadium that held only a couple thousand, and they spent the whole off season trying to get it's at 9,000 now, and the minimum to be at FBS is 15,000. So they need an exemption to be able to continue to play there while a new stadium is being built. Then they just came out and said they're not having fans all year. So there's situations where if you either don't go out the process of getting the designation, or you just let time go by, you're going to find yourself in a bad position. So I don't know the particulars, but I mean, there are Grayson, Fenway, Wrigley, they have done it. So it can be done.
Yeah, we'll just have to see in the coming years for sure. It's interesting you brought up Hawaii. That's a situation that I think has been really, I guess, peaking around in the few years. I remember reading that Colt Brennan, the late great Colt Brennan, had mentioned that there was no soap in the bathrooms even during the Sugar Bowl season. So, really sad situation there. And I guess Jackson, unless you have anything else to add for this topic.
I have another question for you, Mike. And this is one that I'm curious about. What's some of the best concessions you've gotten? Whether it was an unforgettable hot dog, or maybe a local venue that was inside a stadium. What are some of the best ones that you've gone to?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of right off the bat in LSU. There's a couple of places, Memphis at the Liberty Bowl. I mean, if you want ribs and authentic Memphis barbecue, you can get it there. I'm looking forward to going to Philadelphia because I've heard that they inquire the cheesesteak. Right outside of Heinz Field is a place called North Shore, and there are breweries, and you can take a boat ride in the river. Very modern. I like that. Those are the ones that jump out to me. It was in Tennessee too. I think there was like a macaroni and cheese inside Tennessee. I can't remember the name of it, but you notice I pretty much named everything in the South as well too. So that's where it's mostly at. But you see the cost of some of these things too. They're really cost prohibitive, but those are the ones that jump out to me. Have you guys been anywhere and seen particular ones that stand out to you?
At Army Navy, I did get like one of the Philly cheesesteaks.
Oh, nice.
Having the link. But that's really the only one that jumps out at me. I know in Ray J, when I went for a Bucks game, that there was some good like kind of local places inside there too. But yeah, I'm hoping to get to more games, because honestly, I haven't been even close to you, Mike, but probably not even Omar either, as far as how many games I've actually been to. So hoping to get that number up. And
well, when it's all based on your situation, so a good thing about Florida is there's 7 FBS schools in Florida, right? The good thing about Texas, there's 10 FBS schools in Texas. So maybe you can't be going and hitting games in one weekend in North Carolina and Boise and all this stuff. But I mean, you could hit a Thursday game, a Friday game, a Saturday game. North Carolina, Duke, NC State, and UNC are all within 20 miles of each other. You could hit 2 in a day. So maybe not yet, but I mean, there's so much football. I'm jealous. I mean, I think about moving to the South. There's somewhere all the time just to be in more close proximity, because it's very difficult to fly cross country from Oakland, California, and make it to an East Coast game on time. And so you're faced with the choice of flying out on the previous night at 8:00 and flying through the middle of the night and make it there. Or, I'm going to a game at East Carolina. It's at 7:30. I'm leaving at 6 a.m. to Oakland. I'm getting in Raleigh-Durham at 4:30. It's a 2-hour and 10-minute drive, and I'm barely going to make the kickoff. But the alternative is leave at 2 p.m., get there at 11 o'clock at night, spend the night, and then give up an entire day in, Greenville and be out there. So when you guys get to, drive around and be within driving distance of all these schools, I'm really jealous of that.
That's a good point. That's something like that I'm actually dealing with right now. Just being in this, because I'm in Georgia near Augusta right now, and just looking at the dearth of FBS and FCS schools within like a 2 or 3 hour drive. It's honestly kind of overwhelming. I kind of scaled down my schedule this season because I just want to be on the couch and watch college football unfold. I realized how much I like that on the weekends, and I scaled it down a bit just to like rivalry games and really essential games that I like as a history nerd.
Well, I'll tell you, one unintended consequence of traveling to games is you hate watching them on TV. And when I'm home sometimes, and whether it's a bowl game I'm not going to, or there's a Tuesday mat game that I just can't make or whatever, I can't stand it. You know what I mean? And so you pick apart the announcers. You don't like the commercial breaks. You don't like the replay. You don't. So if you want to continue to enjoy that element of being a college football fan, like how many people have you seen? We in the beginning of this, we talked about, oh, we can't look forward. Or how much are we looking forward to the beginning of the year? 8-9 years ago, I was that guy that woke up, in West Coast, the first game starts at 9 a.m., so get out of bed 8:15, get some breakfast, and you're watching games from 9, and then that Hawaii game comes on, you're watching it all day. That was my thing. Ever since I've been traveling to games, I can't do that. And so and maybe other people can do it better, but to me, there's something about that live experience, not just from that makes sense, but the other part is you kind of choose what you take in versus when you watch a broadcast, they're telling you, here's the play, here's the replay, this is what happened. And so anyways, I think if you want to maintain that balance, it's a good idea not to go out every weekend, because you may burn yourself out on commentary from people you may question if they know more than you, right? So anyways, that's just like I said, I didn't know it until I started doing this.
That's the exact reason why I love when it's a pretty big game on an ESPN network and they either do the Sky Cam or the All 22, and you can just tune out. A lot of times they only have like maybe 2 or 3 commercials as opposed to the entire commercial break. That's nice. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to getting to some more games in person.
It's funny because I had gone to the national championship a couple of years in a row, and I didn't go last year because it was 20% capacity. And I think the cheapest ticket was like $2,100. And so I watched the game with my dad. My dad played college football at University of Pacific in Stockton. They don't have a football program anymore, but they did back in the day. And I turned on the exact broadcast that you were talking about. What was the in stadium pumping? It was just the PA announcer, Mac Jones to Devontae Smith, 12-yard completion, Alabama first down. And my dad goes into the kitchen and gets something to drink, and he comes back out and he's looking at it for me. He goes, "What is this?" He goes, "Where's the announcers?" And he just was automatically jumping on it. And I didn't even explain. I was like, "Oh, I put it on the wrong thing." And I changed it back. So you and I, Jackson, are talking about how much we appreciate that. And I turned it on for somebody who has spent, all their years watching football from the couch experience. And that little difference just was unacceptable right away. So it was very interesting to watch play out live.
That's something I never thought about, because I love the announcers. That's something actually that I think enhances the experience for me. Like, there's certain voices of college football, the Joe Testators, the Rich Waltzes, a friend of the podcast. I swear this podcast should have a bingo card for every time I mention Rich Waltz is on it. But I enjoy certain voices, and I understand there's some announcers I really can't watch the conference networks because I just don't know any of the voices, and I can't really get familiar with their styles and everything. So it's kind of a wash. But I totally get that with the whole all 22 experience and just dissecting it, because I know Jackson watches all 22s so much, and he knows so much about those players that you just don't see, because we're all just looking at the ball, we're all following the ball, and I mean the skill players, but certain benefits to that. I guess a question I wanted to ask about this season, and Jackson's gonna roast me later about this, but I noticed that October 23rd, Holy Cross at Colgate at newly christened Polar Park was not on your travel list. Is there any reason for that? A great new ballpark, an exciting new Holy Cross team, back-to-back Patriot League champs. I just want to ask, as someone who grew up 10 minutes away from Holy Cross for 10 years.
Everything is still on the table. So first of all, October 23rd, I've changed my schedule 700 times. Okay. I mean, it's the way it is. The one that I had put out, I put out a tweet and I said, "Is it safe for me to put out my schedule?" And everybody's like, "Yeah." And then comes down that Hawaii's not allowing any fans at their game. Well, the game that I had on my schedule was New Mexico State at Hawaii, October 23rd. So now October 23rd is up for grabs. I will be in Tucson for a Friday night, October 22nd. I am going to several Northeast games. I'm going to a game at Dartmouth, a game at Cornell, a game at Penn on my birthday, a game at Harvard. I'm going to be checking out most of Central Connecticut State on a noon before I head up to UMass at 3:30. So to answer your question, nothing purposeful, no vengeance or animosity towards Holy Cross. I do have a policy that I try to see the first home game in a new stadium, if possible. October 2nd, UAB is opening Protective Stadium versus Liberty. I'm going to be at that. Next year, San Diego State opens against Arizona. I'm going to be at that. So I might have to reconsider my position on Holy Cross and see if I can get out there. Because again, last year, think of all the places that didn't allow fans last year. Okay. That's where I'm going to be. So UMass, Temple, who else is up there? All the MAC schools. All those I need. Rutgers. I'm going to the Thursday night opener at Rutgers. So I want to maximize my time up there as much as possible. So if I could hit that, I would do it. But yeah, again, nothing personal. But I do appreciate the new info because I can reanalyze things.
So I guess you're not going to Texas A&M considering they're pretty much at full capacity the whole year last year.
Yeah, well, I had gone, you want to go to repeat games, right? But I did go to and it's funny too, because you've seen two things come out, right? LSU says you can't go to a game unless you're vaccinated or you pass the COVID test. Georgia comes out 2 hours later and says 92,000, let's pack them, right? So I think the Swamp is the same thing. I'm pretty much sure. So
yeah, Scott Strickland, he just said that a couple of days ago, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, enter at your own risk. I honestly, on a side topic, I'm afraid of how people like to tell you what you should do. And some people will, last year, you don't need that mask, right? And that causes a lot of issues. So hopefully if you go to a game and there's a bunch of people there and we're going to cram people together, if you decide to do something, you're not in direct conflict with anybody else. But going back to Texas A&M, Kyle Field, that place is incredible. I mean, that place it's so much fun. I would love to go back. I have a joke. I told people I want to have my ashes buried in all 130 stadiums. So if I die, early, knock on wood, I need fellow travelers. I need you guys to take my ashes to all 130. And Kyle Field would definitely be one of my favorite stops.
I think Jackson just asked that question because he's bitter about Florida Texas A&M last year.
Yeah, I am. That's where I was getting at.
Taking a shot, but I guess one more question I have is I know you're finally making your trip to Mikey Stadium. What are you looking forward to most there? It's really a beautiful venue, and I'm not saying that out of bias, and any college football fan would agree. But what are you most looking forward to when you visit Mikey Stadium?
I mean, everything. I mean, first of all, when you go to the service academies, it's such a unique environment. I'm also going to Navy, the beginning, but Mikey Stadium, I went there for a visit in 2017, and it was unlike any other visit because, you could just show up at a stadium and hop a fence and you're in or whatever. Army, I showed up at 7:00 and there were 3 officers in the building when you enter, and I gave them my social security number, and they're doing a background check, and they ask you about, things that in your past and all of that. And I got past that. And then I went to the check-in and I talked to a guard, and she said, what's the purpose of your visit? And I said, to visit the football stadium. And she kind of looked at me like cross-eyed, like, you came all the way up here just for that? And so they tore up my rental car, looked for things there. And then I finally made it to the stadium, and, it's such a beautiful setting. So number one, I'm looking forward to like the path of least resistance this time to be able to get in there. But, it's when you go to these East Coast schools and you see, Yale with the national championships and Harvard with the national championships and at, Army, Navy, I mean, it's a big deal now, but it doesn't have any real consequence to the championship of college football. That's a place in a time capsule that was one of the most important stops in the country. And to have that combined with, a service academy, Omar, I talked to you about how impressive it is for you to be able to go through that whole, and graduate from there. So it's a combination of, civilians have a tremendous amount of respect for everybody that's there, acknowledging the history of the Army football program And then just the setting. I mean, being right there on the water, being able to observe the cadets and see them and their enthusiasm I mean, they got to go to the games yet last year when nobody else did. And so I was really tempted. They're playing Western Kentucky on 9/11, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I really wanted to go there, but I'm going to do Oregon at Ohio State at noon and Washington at Michigan at 8. So it's a hard doubleheader to give up. But yeah, I've wanted to go to Army. They play those 11 o'clock games, so sometimes it's hard to fly and make it in on time. But I will be there. There's a Friday night game. I think it's at Dartmouth or something. So I'll be right in the area. But just like I said, the history, the location, the significance, and all of us who never served, we have a great appreciation and gratitude for everybody that's there. So all those things, I can't wait to go.
Do yourself and get American Burrito when you go there in Highland Falls. That's probably what I miss most, which there isn't much to miss from my standpoint, but that's probably what I miss most about that place. So,
if they sold some of these stadium foods in the grocery store, they would dominate, right? You're thinking about what you had there over anything else. So I will definitely check that one out.
I get into cahoots with with anyone at West Point. Jackson was there too for a couple of years, but like anyone about American Burrito, being from the Southwest, that is not real. Those aren't real burritos. I always get into cahoots with people, and also too, I want it to be known. I know you mentioned the Northeastern programs, the Ivy League programs, Mike, and I'm a huge Ivy League guy, and I just want it to be known in this podcast that Florida's 0-2 versus Harvard. So you're totally right about the tradition of these programs.
Man,
I'm sorry, Jackson. I had to.
They got to get them on the schedule. Try to even that up. I mean, you got a right or wrong right there. So
we just dog each other about our programs. I mean, Jackson gives me enough Patriot League and Ivy League hate, so I had to. I saw the opportunity. I'm sorry, Jackson.
Man, I was being really nice, not saying anything about Colgate, whatever game you were talking about too either, man. I'm gonna have to rag you on that one for later.
That is funny. Yeah, I mean, one of the accounts I'm associated with on Twitter is CFB Home, and they're always tweet out things that you don't realize the records. They'll have a G5 school. They'll say, P5 programs they beat, and some of them have some big victories. And I think I saw the other day that Nick Saban is 1-3 versus Iowa. So that's from his Michigan State days, and maybe his when he was in the MAC too. So there's all those stats out there that you didn't know exist, and chances are Florida and Harvard are never going to get a chance to even these things up, most likely.
I am Mike. I do have one last question. Do you ever really try to save on flights and rental cars by booking for these 2035? 2039 home and homes that are being scheduled out by ADs?
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, yeah, I always love that when, FBS schedules or FB schedules, but I always say FBS. FB schedules is one of a big Twitter account, and they always announce these future home and homes, and they'll say, Georgia and Clemson have a home and home in 2034 and 2035. And people will say, my son will be graduating college by then. So yeah, I mean, right now, Southwest Airlines, that's who I fly with. You can't even book past January 4th. So I would love to get a jump on it, but there are limitations. But it is funny. I mean, I think I just saw a thing that the Missouri AD that just took over, their schedule out of conference is booked till 2031. So what is she going to do for the next 10 years? She has nothing to do. So yeah, it's always funny to see those things. But then they creep up on you, right? Then you're like, hey, all of a sudden now we got Oregon, Ohio State. We got, these other ones coming. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to pass time seeing a lot of those home and homes in the future. And when they creep up, I remember I was like in third grade when or third or fourth grade when FB schedules started rolling, and I found it, and I found out Army was playing Oklahoma in 2018. And then all of a sudden, like, I was at West Point when that game happened. It's like, where does the time go? So not a bad idea to I guess look forward to these games and make a list. I know I've kind of find myself doing that too. but
But you
certainly
know what
it's really hard to keep up with.
you know what it's for? It's for the home fans who travel to games. So like a guy like me, a neutral fan guy, neutral, they're not on your radar until the year. But like I have a lot of followers from Georgia Southern, and they're going to a game at Ole Miss this year. They just got Boise. They were supposed to go to Boise for the opener last year, but it got canceled because Mountain West didn't play out any conference game. So there, I think they have BYU coming, and then in a couple of years they're going to BYU. So people who, Jackson being a Florida fan, I'm sure that some of the destinations that we're going. This is bringing me to a question for Jackson. Jackson, do you like the Georgia Florida game being at a neutral site, or would you rather see that on rotation home and home?
I want to have my cake and eat it too. I would love to see an occasional home and home, like maybe each team gets a home game every decade or so. But I also like the fact that Spurrier and the only game we've played in Sanford Stadium was we just dominated. So I also like keeping that 1-0 record.
Yeah.
Between the hedges or whatever they call it there. So.
Yeah, it just like the opener is Clemson against Georgia, and they're playing at neither of their home stadiums. So it's always interesting to see what people, because these annual rivalries. I mean, I remember leaving in 2018. I was leaving LSU. It was 2018. It was LSU beat Georgia. And it was Joe Burrow's like third or fourth start. And the guy, he ran for like 80 yards. And it was a completely different quarterback. But anyways, I was walking out of Death Valley and these Georgia fans were getting ragged on, right? And I told them, I was like, don't worry, guys. You guys have a good team, whatever. And then we've been like really good friends ever since then. We consoled them. And so when you go to that neutral fan dynamic or the neutral site dynamic, especially as a neutral fan, when you go and you're like, I went to the national championship, Clemson, LSU at the Superdome, and I wore a Marshall shirt. And people were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't care who wins. I hope both teams have fun. And they looked at me like, you spent $1,000 to say both teams have fun. So I just am curious for you if, you would want to, okay, hey, we have a good record in the swamp or in Athens, but we'll trade getting them on our turf to beat them here in the swamp to risk our livelihood back in Sanford.
Yeah, no, it goes both ways because, man, it's almost a guaranteed victory if you can get them end up in hell. But then it goes the other way around. I don't want to play under those red LED lights either. So
grown men barking at you and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but I mean, it's cool what they do in Jacksonville. That stadium is amazing that they've done with gosh, I forget what they renamed it, but
TIAA, I think it is, right?
Yeah, TIAA, something like that. Yeah, it's a beautiful stadium that Shad Khan's built down there. So goes both ways. And my family lives in Jacksonville, so hey, hopefully I can go to that game sometime.
There you go. Well, the fact that we can't even name the name of the Jaguars Stadium is another thing that adds to, do you like college stadiums or do you like college teams playing in pro stadiums? So
very true.
We're saying Sanford and the swamp and all this stuff. And we're like, what's the Jacksonville Jaguars Stadium name? I mean, we should know that. So.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our topics here. Mike, you've been amazing. Jackson, as always, despite all the Florida trash talk. But do either of you have any final remarks? Anything to say? Any last impressions?
Well, I mean, you started off with the question about, how do I travel? And, for me, seeing guys like you, two things. Number one is I want to be a resource for you guys or anybody that's looking to do this because, whether you start on a small scale and you start knocking them off, or then you find yourself in a position you can start doing more. It's the most fun thing you can do. And when the cool thing that I like is I go somewhere and they don't know necessarily that I've been everywhere. I know that they play, Sweet Caroline at every stadium. I know that they have fireworks in certain side, but they don't know that. And so when you talk to these people, they want you to see their stadium from their perspective, and they want to present it in the best light. So every time you go somewhere, you're seeing something new that is being presented to you in the best light possible. It's just a cool dynamic. And then secondly, being able to have these podcasts and put yourself out there and do this, it's important to talk to a wide variety of people. I talk to people all throughout the season, and you can engage with people for a 20-30 minute conversation. And then for the rest of the time you're on Twitter and everything, you're talking, you're retweeting each other's stuff, you're making plans to meet up at games. I mean, I have people that are sending me tickets or, wanting me to tailgate with them that I either talked to for 5 minutes at a game or I did one interview with. So those two things, join in the community of people traveling because they're out there. You guys need anything from me, I'm, here all the time. And then just keep doing what you're doing, make these connections, because this is a community and it grows larger and larger the more people you talk to.
That was really touching, to be honest, and I appreciate that for sure. And hopefully this isn't the last time we have you on the podcast. Hopefully you can find time for us in the future, for maybe a bowl thing in maybe this year. But again, Mike, you've been great. And Jackson, anything else?
Hey, I don't know if you've hit McLean Stadium yet, but if you're ever coming to a Baylor game, hey, I'm right near campus. So
McLean is my favorite Big 12 stadium. I mean, we talk about, okay, we like the older stadiums. That place is new and nice, right? So I love that place. I actually went there. They played UTSA and they beat them like 62-0. And I was so thankful that I had a seat on the home side under the shade of the press box. Oh my God. The UTSA band, they stayed on the other side. They were playing like, what's that, like the movie, The Titanic, the band is still playing when the boat is going down, right? It was 62-0, and they were still playing their closing song in the 100-degree heat after the time went out. So, but McLean is such a beautiful stadium. So I would love to go back down there and check out a game. I love where the student section is placed right behind the roadside team. They have such an impact on the game. And then watching the guy, I don't know the official name of it, but watching the students run across the stadium before the game. That's a cool tradition too. So yeah, I would love to get back to McLean.
There you have it. I mean, McLean Stadium, best stadium in the Big 12. Take that, Texas fans. But until next time, thank you again, Mike. Jackson and I always recording. You always see us out here. And for those of you watching, meet up with Mike on this campus tour. If you're at the same game with him, you won't be disappointed. But until next time, peace, love, and soul, everyone.
Thank you, guys.